Welcome to School Shooter. Written and narrated by Thorsten Nesch. A mini-series in 4 parts. Part 3. "9:41 a.m. Nina's eyes narrow and her pupils enlarge as if she is searching for something. She leans back. The sun beam no longer cleaves her face, but travels from her head to the back wall of the vanity. This is not true, she thinks. That's not true, Ella. That's not true what you were saying. When I went to the bathroom, you came out. You opened the door for me and ran in the opposite direction of room 308. The heavy door closed behind me. I went to the sink and saw my face in the mirror. My beautiful blouse was splattered and smeared. No, I still look the same. I'm going to be in so much trouble when I get home, but it's not my fault, not my fault." Nina places her hands in the narrow beam of sunlight and sees the red-brown streaks that run over her arms. 9:42 a.m. Ella lies down on the table and bends her legs. Without looking at anyone, she starts speaking to the ceiling. What kind of weirdo would think of doing something so outrageous? "A weirdo," answers Basti. "But why?" "Maybe a teacher had something to prove. Then the weirdo wouldn't go after students." Drager asks, "Has any of you ever been treated unfairly by your teachers?" "The only fair thing at this school is a chalk," says Mark. Waldhauser laughs first, then Drager. "Revenge?" Drager offers as an explanation. "That's still no reason, especially not against students," argues Ella. "Maybe they were bullied." "Nonsense," says Drager. After a beat, Basti starts. "My father says it's because heroes don't exist anymore." "What is he, philosopher?" says Drager. "He must only meet the wrong kind of people," says Ella, turning her head so that she's looking directly at Drager and Waldhauser. "You really didn't see him, did you?" "No," Drager answers. "Honestly, I'm glad we didn't." "Did you hear anything?" asks Mark. "Did anyone call his name or hear his voice? Did he call out anything? Does he go to the school?" "In all the chaos, I just heard screams." "So he definitely goes to the school," says Basti. "From our school?" "Yes, can't you imagine that?" "I don't know. Look around." Basti gestures in Waldhauser's direction. "Hey," says Waldhauser. "Or the guy was just expelled from Tesla," adds Drager. "Like who, for instance?" asks Basti. Drager shrugs. "I don't know. I'm just saying it might be someone who just transferred here. Wasn't there this guy from Wingenen, corrects Mark. Ella speaks to the ceiling. "I haven't heard of anyone being expelled from Tesla." "Then he still goes to the school," says Drager. "Then who do you think it might be?" Mark asks, leaning against the shelf. Drager asks back, "What about the weird guy with the black hat?" "No, I don't think so. He's just plain old-fashioned weird," Waldhauser says with a nod. "Didn't he recently bring a sword to school?" asks Basti. "Yeah," says Mark. "A gamer?" Drager asks. "For sure," answers Basti. "Computer games?" asks Ella. "Certainly not modern sword fighting. Does anyone else believe that this rampage might have anything to do with computer games? Hello? Who here doesn't play computer games?" Mark asks the others. Ella raises her arm. Basti nods. "I do, but not all the time." "Just because one is a gamer doesn't mean..." Basti cuts Mark off. "Did you know the Americans let their Marines play ego shooters?" "So?" "They do it to lower the threshold to kill." "And what for?" "Oh, take a wild guess." "That's extreme," says Drager. "How do you even know that?" asks Mark. "I like to check out different stuff on non-mainstream blogs." "I don't understand how someone can shoot or take another person's life," Ella sighs. "It's easy. We've all witnessed it today," says Mark. "The question is, how do these weirdos get the guns?" Basti asks the group. "Gangs," answers Mark right away. "That's absurd. If that was the case, we wouldn't go out and walk to the store without being shot." "Most of the time, don't they steal them from their parents?" asks Drager. "Yeah, from their fathers," adds Ella. "Usually it's the boys, and they were never in love." Waldhauser adds, "That doesn't apply to everyone, though." "Of course not to everyone. Maybe they don't know how to love," says Basti. "Who can't feel love?" asks Mark. "Those who aren't loved," says Ella, "by their parents." Are you loved by your parents? Sure, at least by my mother, she says. My father took off when I was a kid. And you? My father works so much he is cut off from everything. I mean, everything, says Mark. They all laugh. I have 2 fathers, 2 mothers, a brother, a half-brother, and 2 half-sisters. Patchwork family, adds Basti. I would go insane, says Drager. I'm fine with it. In any case, if the lunatics don't get the guns, things like this wouldn't happen at all. I can't imagine people walking around strangling each other, says Ella. Mark bursts out laughing. No, I can't see that either. He puts his hand around an imaginary throat and pretends to strangle someone. He stops smiling and puts his arms back down. Besides, they wouldn't have the guts to do it, she says. What do you mean by guts? Asks Drager. Well, for strangling you would have to be more than insane. You touch the person, and with a knife you have to be close too, you know. It's really easy to point a gun at someone 10 meters away, actually. It's kind of weak and cowardly, come to think of. I bet not one of them would have the balls without a gun. Not one of them. Either you have balls or bullets. It gives them a false sense of power. Cowards, that's what they are. Maybe they do have something in common. It wouldn't surprise me if they all had just tiny dicks. Everyone laughs nervously. Ella illustrates with her fingers. They all have tiny penises, like Pinky. She makes a fist, just her bent pinky sticks out. Basti tries to speak through the laughter. If that were true, if that were... No gunman wants to go down in history as having a pinky penis, says Ella. Basti slaps his thigh. A short shooter. Shh! Mark looks in the direction of the door. Everyone goes silent. It is as though all the laughter is being sucked out of the room as they sit completely still, staring at the door. Their ears are alert, listening. I thought I heard something. Mark breaks the silence. What did you hear? Asks Basti. Steps, maybe steps. But maybe it was nothing. Drager struggles to get up, cocking his head towards the door. If we could carry guns like they do in the US, then it wouldn't have come this far. You got that right, agrees Mark. Bullshit, says Basti. The Americans invented this kind of shit. You know, guns are banned in schools over there, Ella says. That is the problem. If it wasn't that way, students would be more considerate. Ella props herself up. Can't you imagine what would happen? My 6-year-old brother is a brat. If he would have a gun, he would be the only one left at school, because he would have shot all his classmates. Guns should have never been invented in the first place. Exactly, says Basti. The police shouldn't carry guns either. Right, laughs Drager. Only the police and the army should be allowed to carry guns, says Ella. Mark shakes his head. That's not going to do anything. They sell their used guns to any retailers. Are you serious? Says Ella. Yes, thousands of them. They showed it on TV a few months ago. No. Yes. Money's tight in the police departments. This way the departments can earn some extra money on the side, they said. But isn't that dangerous for the police? She asks. Basti laughs briefly. That's why more and more police officers are being hired. To protect themselves and us from their own weapons, she says. Yes. By the way, where is the police now? She says. Shouldn't we have heard something by now? They must know what's going on. They know, says Drager. They probably have the whole school surrounded. The other day it took them less than 5 minutes to arrive at the convenience store, right, Waldhauser? That's right. Sirens, police, ambulance? Asks Ella. They turn the sirens off beforehand, or the criminals would only need good ears to know when to run, Drager says. Maybe they are waiting for the SWAT team, Mark says. Smartass, Basti responds. Ella nods to the guys. What are we waiting for? Let's go, look around. Yes, that's a really great idea, says Basti. Let's push the cabinets to the side and go into the hall. The window up there, Ella says. Drager rushes across the library, not taking his eyes off that window. I'll do it. Mark follows him, with Ella and Basti trailing behind. Waldhauser says, Hey, what about me? Someone has to sit in front of the barricade, says Basti. 9:43 a.m. That's a good idea. Nina nods silently. I hope they are able to let the police outside know what we are in here. If the police know, then so does Mom. She'll be worried, sick. She's such a worrywart. If I get out here soon, maybe I can go to my gymnastics class this afternoon. Last week we practiced on the high bar, and this week we want to work on our floor exercises. I hope that Andrea becomes my friend. She was really nice and helpful, but the others just whispered amongst themselves, as usual. Through the crack in the middle of the doors, Nina sees 4 of the others disappear behind the shelves. Waldhauser is on her right, next to the cabinets, checking out the outlet in the wall. She grimaces as she breathes in the dust that is floating around her. 9:44 a.m. No problem. Drager marches straight to the bookcase nearest to the windows. Before anyone can say anything, he climbs up the first shelf and onto the second. The shelf groans and creaks under his weight. It teeters and threatens to overturn. Just in time, he jumps off. The bookcase bangs against the wall. Books rain down on Drager's head and onto the floor. Maps float and slide under nearby shelves. A cardboard box falls down right beside him and breaks apart. In shock and out of breath, Drager checks his forehead for blood. Waldhauser calls out, "Everything okay?" Yeah. "Looks like literature has finally left an impression on Drager," jokes Basti. Mark adds, "He's so out of his element." "Very funny, you guys. That's enough, I got it. Let's try to make a human ladder," says Basti. Drager thinks it over for a moment and looks for Waldhauser. He's nowhere to be seen. He straightens his now dirty jacket and says, "Okay, so since no one can lift me up, I better be on the bottom." He walks backwards slowly until he stands underneath one of the windows. Then he leans against the wall and links his hands together to make a step. "So, who wants to volunteer?" Both Mark and Basti hesitate as Drager's jacket rustles against the wallpaper. "Ella, will you volunteer?" Drager asks. "I will behave myself. Promise." "You are the lightest here," Basti admits. "Exactly," Drager agrees. "I won't be groped by the likes of you." "That's not what this is all about," says Basti. "What is it then?" asks Drager, looking at Ella. "Nothing, it's just that I'm afraid of heights," she says. "Afraid of heights? What is that supposed to mean? What kind of heights? Tell me you can still look out from third-floor windows." "Sure, but I can't get on ladders, not even human ones." "You cannot be serious." "I am." "You have a fear of heights?" "Yes." "Well, then I'll do it," Basti and Mark shout at the same time, both of them watching Ella from the corners of their eyes. "Looks like I have to pick one of you," says Drager. Fleabag or loser?" Waldhauser's laughter is heard from a distance. "Come on, put your foot in here and I'll lift you up," he tells Mark. Mark puts his hands on Drager's broad shoulders and puts his right foot into his folded hands. Effortlessly, Drager lifts him as far as he can. Mark steps from Drager's hands onto his shoulders and then grabs the windowsill. With their hands on their hips, Basti and Ella watch them. Basti says, "Wow, very professional looking. Nicely done. You're great teamwork there." "We're not a team," retorts Drager. "No, definitely not," says Mark. "What do you see?" asks Ella. Despite the height he is already at, Mark tries to get higher. His knuckles turn white with the strength needed to hold on to the windowsill. He squints into the bright sunlight. "Don't make it so dramatic," says Drager. "There's nobody out there." "No one." "Don't fuck with me," says Drager. "Are you telling me I have to endure your sorry testicles against my forehead for nothing?" "I'm telling the truth. No one is out there. If anyone is still out there, then they must be at the front of the school. The only thing I see is a gym and the central building. There's nobody around, not even by the group of trees on the far side." Basti hangs his arms in frustration. Ella turns around and tears at her hair. "Okay, that's enough," says Drager as he lets go. Mark lands hard, sidestepping to avoid tripping. He grabs onto a shelving to steady himself. "Hey, what was that for? Is that my fault?" asks Mark. Drager punches the wall with his fist. The thud serves as an introduction to the cursing that follows. "I shoplift and the K9 unit parachutes down on me. The cops were all over me so fast it was ridiculous. This kind of shit happens and there is no cop to be seen. I can't believe it." Mark relaxes his hold on the shelf. "Maybe they've taken cover and they are waiting for the special SWAT team to arrive." "Why would they do that?" asks Drager. Basti answers. "That would mean the killer is still alive and still in the school." "No," sighs Ella, leaning forward on her knees like an exhausted runner at the end of a race. Mark reluctantly places his hand on her back. She lets him. Drager bends down and starts moving the books around as if searching for something. Basti raises his eyebrows. "What now? Why the sudden interest in literature? How hard did the book hit you on the head?" Drager lifts his heavy atlas in the air. "I am going to throw this at the damn window." "No!" He holds the heavy book like a discus thrower would. "Why not?" Basti points in the direction of the window. Because then the killer will know where we are. Get out of the way, or your lower jaw will join the book out the window. Basti is right, says Ella. If the killer is on our side of the building, he will see us and be able to get faster to us than the police. All eyes are on Drager. They hear a muffled sneeze. Mark says, "Bless you," to Waldhauser. Waldhauser also says, "Bless you." Basti says, "Nobody sneezed here." "Yeah, right, nobody here either," yells Waldhauser. Drager throws the atlas down onto the other books and rolls his eyes. "Man, no one on this side sneezed. So if no one sneezed here, then you sneezed." "I didn't." "Waldhauser, you don't notice anything anymore, not even your body functions. You're sure next thing you know you saw yourself." 9:45 a.m. Nina holds her nose buried inside her elbow. It still tickles. With wide open eyes, she looks over her white sweatshirt sleeve to Waldhauser. He's looking at Drager. Before this, his attention was focused on the wall socket. He starts to imitate Drager. He pushes his lower lip out and pulls down the corners of his mouth as he silently mimics his every action and word. The school bell rings again. "This is the end of the break. Don't cry. I can't cry. Don't cry. And I don't want to sneeze anymore." Waldhauser turns back to the wall socket and pulls out a Swiss Army knife from his pants. 9:46 a.m. Slowly, everybody walks over to Waldhauser. Drager is first, with Mark right behind him, and then Ella and Basti. Ella slides her fingertips over the book spines on the shelf. "So, the guy with the hat is still roaming around out there somewhere?" "It may not necessarily be the guy with the hat," says Basti. "No? That's not what I heard. I just meant that it could have been him. He seems strange enough." "True," Mark says. Drager heads to the table with the chairs and says to his buddy, "You're doing a good job blocking the door. What are you doing there?" "I'm repairing an electrical outlet." They laugh. Drager pulls out a chair and sits down. The others follow suit until they're all sitting in a half circle facing the entrance door. On one hand, no one has to look directly into the sun. On the other hand, they have a clear view of the door and Waldhauser. "This whole thing sucks," announces Drager. "You're not entirely innocent," says Ella. "How so?" Mark and Basti look back and forth between Ella and Drager as they play verbal volleyball. "If you hadn't filmed the chaos and played it over and over and over, we would have been able to call somebody." "Oh, that's rich, coming from someone that ran out of class without taking their phone with them." "I panicked. What I don't understand is what was going through your head when you started recording. I can tell you what is going on in my head right now." Ella frowns. Mark says, "It's a hobby of his." "To film your friends and a few stunts, I can understand, but how can you watch this chaos around you and record it?" "I don't know what your problem is, but you could be a little nicer to me." For a moment, Ella's mouth remains open, then she asks, "Nicer?" "Did you hear that?" asks Drager, turning to Waldhauser, who is listening attentively to their conversation while swinging the plastic cover of the outlet around his middle finger. From the hole in the wall, cables hang out. On the floor there are small screws and the socket itself. His mouth turns to a wide grin. "Yes, I think I'm being more than nice to her." "Yes, Drager, that you are." "What?" asks Ella. Drager continues to talk to Waldhauser. "Do you think I should tell her?" "Sounds like the right time to me." "Oh, what kind of crap are you two babbling about?" asks Ella. She jumps up from the table, toppling a chair to the floor. Drager waits to see if she picks it up again. She doesn't. So he says, "That was some crazy party." His eyes flash from Ella to Basti. Ella looks at Basti, who only shrugs his shoulders. "What party?" asks Ella. 9:47 a.m. Waldhauser flings the socket into the air and catches it with one hand. "Yes, what party, Drager?" Leaning back in his chair, Drager crosses his legs under the table. "That huge party at Luke's last month?" "I was there, so what?" she says. "I know you were there. Weren't you there too, Basti?" The two look at each other. Mark speaks through the silence. "Luke lives around the corner from me. Were you all there?" "Yes, were you?" asks Drager. "No. Why not?" didn't feel like going. To a party? I was busy. Okay, I see. Ella scratches her left arm. So what? Yes, we were at the party. There were a lot of people there. What's your point? Well, if you looked through the office window there, you could clearly see into Luke's parents' bedroom, Drager answers. Does that ring a bell? I thought nobody was supposed to go into his father's office. And I thought the bedroom was out of limits, Drager grins. What did you see? Waldhauser pipes up. Everything, and it's getting even better. Ella asks, what did you see? He's pointing from Ella to Basti. I saw both of you making out. We saw it. How long did you watch? Asked Basti. Mark can't hold back his surprise any longer. Really? You two? Are you together? Together? Not really, Ella says with a sidelong glance at Basti. Drager is proud of himself. The whole time we were watching. Peeping Tom, interjects Basti. Until we thought we would pay you a little visit. But you locked the door, complained Waldhauser. That was you by the door, says Ella. We then went back to the office window to continue filming. By the way, does somebody know my hobby? Drager asks. Neither Ella nor Basti can speak, so Mark says, videos. Right on, Drager rolls the R. Ella's mouth hangs open until she finally speaks. You did not film us. Did you? Yes, I did. No. Yes, he did, says Waldhauser. You didn't, says Basti. Drager nods. Oh, yes, I did. Ella turns away. You really have no reason to feel ashamed considering how you were going at it. Drager sits up and with his hands clasped behind his head starts to make circular movements with his pelvis. Waldhauser topples over laughing, holding his stomach. You asshole! Ella jumps up around the table and starts punching Drager's chest with her fists. He turns away, laughing, as he holds her off with one arm. As Basti rushes to help her, Waldhauser warns him by saying, not fair, 2 against 1. Basti stops halfway. Ella eventually stops punching Drager and stares at him with clenched fists. Drager fixes his jacket again and says, you really should be a lot nicer to me, considering I haven't posted your video yet. Posted? Where? Basti asks. On my YouTube channel. I have 89 videos online, totaling 24,000 views. You think I get a kick out of shooting these videos for myself? Such treasures should be shared with everyone. What kind of videos do you post? Asks Ella. Whatever the viewers want. Basti holds his head with one hand while the other one sits on the table and asks, you aren't really going to load it up there, I mean? Probably not anymore, but I might change my mind if I feel slightly disrespected here. Ella tries to calm her voice down. Not anymore? What made you change your mind? With a better quality amateur sex video, I might have landed in the top 100 for a week, if I didn't get censored or no one reported me. With what I shot half an hour ago, the real thing, the real panic, the reality, I'll be number 1 for weeks, worldwide. Or better yet, I could sell it to the media and make some real money. I would do interviews, sell my story to the newspapers and magazines. Get it? Adds Waldhauser. Ella pauses for a moment and says, I don't care what you have planned because you don't intend to post our video online anyways. Then stop bugging me about it. Believe me, when you two were at it, I would have rather been in front of the camera than behind it. She turns away from him and whispers, you're such an asshole. What a fucking asshole. Basti tries to console Ella, but she turns away. He gets up and wanders through the room, past Waldhauser. Ella sits down with her back to Drager and rests her head on the table with one arm. For a second her eyes meet Mark's. He has been listening in silence the whole time. Now he asks Drager, did you post my video yet? Sure did. Mark says nothing, so Drager continues. Nothing special. 13 views. Did he also make a sex tape of you? Asks Ella. Drager laughs. No, in his dreams. Hey, soft porno with 13 views a month? That has to be the unluckiest number in the world. 9:48 a.m. An explosion rumbles the building. The door rattles in its frame and a book falls from a shelf that Drager tried to climb. A small sound comes from near the sink. Waldhauser reacts to the explosion by looking behind the barricade blocking the door. Mark ducks under the table with Ella and Drager. Basti hides beside the shelf next to them. Total silence. No one even breathes. Under the table, Mark, Ella, and Drager look at each other. They are lying down as flat as possible. Their eyes never linger for long, as if their angst could jump from one to the other, if their looks get locked a touch too long. Basti looks at Mark and sees him lying on his stomach, with his hands folded over his shaking head, muttering, "Oh no, why? Basti calls out to him. When he doesn't respond, Ella tries 2 more times. Mark stops mumbling, shakes his head, and indicates with his finger that he's fine. Waldhauser smiles and gives everyone a thumbs up. "It was a grenade, man," says Drager. "It sounded like a grenade. The freak must still be in school." Mark's jacket rustles as he turns to the side. "Could have been a bomb, you know. Sometimes they use time bombs." Drager thinks about for a bit and says, "You were right. Could have been one. Could have been a time bomb." "Maybe he blew himself up," says Basti. "They always commit suicide in the end." "Or was that the police?" asks Ella. "I don't think so," answers Drager. "Smoke bombs aren't that loud." Waldhauser turns around and starts to make his way over to the rest of them. Drager tells him to stay put. Waldhauser makes a face and with the lips forms a word. "Why?" "Because I don't want whoever is out there to simply open the door," Drager loud whispers. "That's not going to happen because of the cabinets," Waldhauser whispers back. "They could slide on the floor. Stay put, man. He has bombs. He will bomb the door open and me with it. Only if he gets the door slightly open and sees that there are still people in here. Stay put. Keep your mouth shut." "Shit." Waldhauser lies down flat in front of the cabinet and waves to Drager to join him. Drager nods, but remains where he is. 9:49 a.m. Nina shakes, but she continues to kneel under the sink. She has knocked over a plastic soap bottle. Although she is curled up even tighter than before, every time she moves, her head brushes against the bottom of the sink. Her left foot has fallen asleep and it tingles and tickles. It makes her want to giggle. To avoid it, she bites her tongue until it hurts. "I'm so lucky no one heard me. I have to be super quiet. The last time my foot fell asleep was when I was at the farm watching a documentary on rehabilitating convicts in the desert with horses. Unfortunately, I couldn't understand a word, even though I watched the DVD almost twice every day. They were convicted horse whippers. They had to talk to the horses until they could ride them. Why can I not do that? Mom's reaction was strange when I told her. Does that mean I have to commit a crime first? To talk to horses?" Her head brushes against the bottom of the sink. The tip of a screw that holds the sink in place scratches her scalp, ripping the skin. She gasps, trying not to making a noise. Suddenly she opens her eyes wide and realizes that her hair is caught in the screw. Supporting herself with one hand, she uses the other to feel for the hair that was wrapped itself around the screw. "Oh no, oh no, oh no." 9:50 a.m. "Mark, St. Mark," Ella whispers. She's stretched out between Basti and Drager, her chin resting on her hands. Mark doesn't respond. Instead, he continues to cling to the shelf, shaking his head. "Leave him alone," mutters Basti. "Not that he's going nuts. What are you going to do about that?" "Well, I won't just stand by then." She crawls over to him. "Ella!" Drager looks over his shoulder, watching her. Basti also. Both of them are fascinated by the movement of Ella's body. They watch as she crawls. Finally, their eyes come to a rest on her bare ankles and notice that she is not wearing any socks. Both watch her intently. Drager whispers to Basti, but he doesn't understand him, so he repeats it. "I said it's a pity she's not wearing a skirt." Basti rolls his eyes. "All right, don't pretend you aren't thinking the same." "What do you mean?" "Oh, come on. Drager, someone has to compensate for the perverts of the world, and that's me." He laughs briefly. "And that person is you?" "Right now, yeah." Women sympathizer. "Jealous? Of what?" Drager asks, showing false emotions. "I didn't have sex with her." "Do you really have a video of us?" Drager smiles. "I always tell the truth." "May you be struck by lightning." "Then it would strike you too, because you're not exactly a saint." How long is the video? Longer than you think, at least longer than I thought. Basti looks at him for a moment. Can I have it? You're such a hypocrite. Who's the asshole now? Can I or can I not? When I get out of here, you will be able to download it from YouTube, like the rest of them. Drager looks to Ella, who has just put her arm around Mark. 9:51 a.m. Hey, Mark. He raises his head and looks at her from the corners of his eyes. She smiles at him, resting her hand on his back. Are you okay? Yeah. Why didn't you answer me when I called you? He shrugs his shoulders. Suddenly her face freezes. Is that blood? She asks, pointing at some dark red spots on his jacket. What? Blood, right there. Where? Mark, from under the table, Basti speaks louder this time. What's wrong? Ella turns to him. I think he has some blood on his jacket. Basti and Drager crawl out from underneath the table. Yeah, it looks like blood to me, says Mark, almost in a trance. Are you hurt? Asks Basti. Mark looks at his hands. No. Drager takes a closer look. Must been recent. It's fresh. What is? Asks Waldhauser. Shut up already, snaps Drager. Ella wipes her hair from her face. Then this has to be someone else's blood. From someone near you. Basti stops short. Must be, says Drager. Ella sits up. Who? Mark looks from one person to another as if he will find the answer on their faces. From who? Ella asks. His head twitches back and forth. I ran. I just ran the whole time. Did you hear the shots? Yeah, I did. You didn't turn around? No. Not even if someone next to you was shot? I didn't see anything. Everyone is breathing fast now. Ella looks at him. Don't you want to take your jacket off? He shakes his head. I'm cold. I wouldn't be able to walk around in it, Ella says, and then turns to Drager. Aren't you and Waldhauser warm in your thick jackets? Well, that's not your problem. I'm cold, says Mark. Basti nods. You're in shock. That's perfectly normal. The doctor has spoken, says Drager, complete with medical specialization in intensive care and first aid. Boy, did we ever luck out. Basti is here to make sure nothing happens to us. Exactly. Now you got me. The conversation stops. Waldhauser asks, Hey, so what's going on? 9:52 a.m. Nina watches Waldhauser, but she can only see his legs through the slit. She can't lean forward anymore. Desperately, she tries to free her hair from the screw, pulling it one way and then the other, but this only makes it worse. Now her hair is wound tighter than before. Once again, the screw scrapes her scalp. The sound is deafening to her and she grimaces. She carefully touches the spot with her finger and holds it in the light that peeks through the wide slit. Fresh blood gleams on her finger. I wish I could see the hair caught in the screw. It could be so much easier to untangle it then. My hair isn't even that long. How did it manage to get caught on the screw? That's not fair. It's just not fair. I have no luck. No luck. With 2 fingers she pulls as hard as she can. Her sweaty fingers slide on her hair. She loses the grip. 9:53 a.m. The drops of blood are right above the pocket, frayed out in the polyester. Waldhauser's nose hovers close over the blood. Drager sneers. I didn't know you needed glasses to see. I don't. Looks that way to me. You're acting like you've never seen blood before. Waldhauser backs away and sits up. This is different. The blood didn't come from a bleeding nose or a busted lip. Ella kneels down. I'd never wear a blood-stained jacket. I didn't choose, says Mark. She turns her head toward the windows. The bright sun shines into her brown eyes. Her bottom lip glistens as she says, I want to go home. Me too, says Basti. Who doesn't, says Drager. Ella seems to talk to the sun. What if we take the frames out of the windows? Will that make them big enough for us to climb out? Don't you realize how much noise it is going to make? Forget it, says Basti. We need a hammer, a saw, anything, and then what? We are on the 3rd floor. We can't climb up or down. We can't even get onto the roof. What about getting rescued? Ella, we have to assume that the weirdo is still in school. If the school isn't completely surrounded, we can't take that chance. He'll be able to get us way before the police. He's right, says Mark. She turns towards the boys and raises her voice. I'm going crazy here. I can't just sit here and wait and wait and wait. You need to calm down, says Drager. Please, calm down. All right, never mind. She leans her head back and breathes deeply. Everyone is quiet, lost in their own thoughts. The only sound in the room is the blim-blim of the broken fluorescent light in the storage room as it cycles on and off. What about the ceiling? Asks Ella, tilting her head back. They all look up. Basti jumps. In no time he's on the table. He tries to touch the ceiling, but he's not tall enough. Try the sink, says Ella. Basti gets down from the desk and climbs onto the sink, which creaks under his weight. He stretches his arms upward and touches one of the loose ceiling tiles with his fingertips. 9:54 a.m. Nina hears Basti's feet on the countertop letting the old wood moan and crack. The doors tremble on their hinges. Dust trickles down. Nina is petrified. With one hand she holds her screw-tangled hair. Her eyes dart side to side in the semi-darkness. What is he doing up there? What was the last thing she said? I wish I'd listened more closely. If Drager or Waldhauser climb on the sink, it'll collapse on me. It's loose, she hears Basti say with a joy. Take it out, demands Drager. You might have to turn it slightly, says Waldhauser. I know. The wood panel pops out. It falls to the floor right in front of Nina. She closes her eyes and swallows. She forces herself not to flinch. The sink shakes violently and Basti's feet land on the floor. He bends down so that his face is close to the crack between the doors. Nina is holding her breath just inches away. Oh no, if he sees me, what am I going to say? But he doesn't see her. He picks up the ceiling tile and takes it to the others. This is really thin. Basti hands it to Drager. Without any effort, Drager breaks the tile in half, using only his thumbs. He says to Ella, this isn't even strong enough to support you. He throws the 2 broken pieces over to the sink. So we have to find another way to shimmy up there? Ella asks. No, Drager says, shaking his head. No chance. 9:55 a.m. Waldhauser plays with the screwed-off cover of the socket. What have you got there now? Asks Drager. That, Waldhauser points towards the open outlet. Basti and Ella shift around in order to see the cabinet. I was bored, while you were having fun under the table there. So when you get bored, you destroy things? Asks Basti. Well, that's what I thought, Drager says before Waldhauser can say anything. I don't consider it destroyed because I can put it back together, replies Waldhauser. Well, then fix it, says Basti. Drager walks over to the wall outlet. Who cares, says Waldhauser. Drager moves closer and starts to tap on the wall. What is this then, he says. The wall has an empty sound to it. It's hollow. He knocks 3 more times to make sure. Dong, dong, dong. It's hollow behind there, he says. It sounds like there could be a shaft behind this metal plate. What do you mean a shaft? Asks Waldhauser. Yes, a shaft, says Ella. Maybe we can get out through a shaft. Basti brings her back to reality by saying, maybe not out, but, well, we could end up somewhere else. Isn't the principal's office underneath us? Mark says. And there are phones. Maybe we can go there and then phone someone for help, says Basti. Drager scratches a thumbnail along the edge of the wall. It might just work. Waldhauser pulls out his Swiss Army knife. Do you want me to? What's the point? It's not going to work, says Drager. He screams suddenly and pulls his hand back. He inspects his thumb. A wood splitter gotten under his nail, leaving a purple-blue mark where it has embedded itself. Cheap wallpaper, comments Waldhauser dryly. Drager tries to suck the splinter out of his finger. Basti grins. What a sight. Now that's something for YouTube, Drager, the thumb sucker. He takes his finger out of his mouth and spits red against the white wall. Then he fixes his eyes on Basti, the pain of the splinter disappearing at once. I just moistened it so it wouldn't hurt so much when I ram it up your ass. That's bent. I didn't know about your hidden sexual orientation. Drager gets up. Guys. Ella leaps between them. You boys, I don't care about who's tougher in that. You're both Alpha in different ways, okay? I just want to get out here. So if there is a shaft behind there which can get us to a phone, the only thing I want us to do is get it open. Basti and Draeger look at each other. Come on, let me see. Walthauser interrupts the tense silence. Draeger doesn't respond immediately, but with a slight chuckle he says to Basti, "Not now." He then turns around and walks further into the sunlight and carefully inspects the thumb again. Walthauser runs his knife along the edge of the wallpaper. "You have a knife with you?" wonders Basti. "It is a pocket knife." He skillfully slides the blade along the slit. Mark sits down next to him and points at the knife. "Looks expensive." "Probably." Mark watches in silence until Walthauser has cut around the metal plate. He switches from knife to the screwdriver attachment and tries to pry open the plate. "Crap." Draeger hears him struggle and says, "You need anything?" "I need something to force it open. Really tight in there." Draeger walks over to the sink and then to the desk. From a large jar that serves as a pen holder, he pulls out a wooden ruler that is reinforced with metal. He tests it to see if it is strong enough, but it breaks in two. He throws the halves against the shelf and goes to the storage room. "I'll Google in here. Let's see if I can find something." Draeger grabs the first computer frame that he sees, puts it on the ground, and crushes it with his full weight, like a trash compactor. He then flattens the plate, walks back, and shows it to Walthauser. "I found something to force it open." Walthauser gets up, closes his knife, and sticks it inside his pocket. Draeger takes the plate with both hands and pushes a flattened edge into the slot between the metal plate and the wall. He says to Walthauser, "Hold on to the plate so it doesn't fall on the floor and makes a lot of noise." Walthauser sits down beside him. He holds the plate with both hands, and after 2 attempts to force the plate loose with their hands, Draeger kicks the metal plate, comes off, and falls into Walthauser's hands as planned. Everyone is staring at the hole in the wall. Walthauser places the cover and the bent computer plate on the floor behind him. Draeger wipes his face. "Shh, that doesn't get us anywhere." Basti groans. "None of us can fit in there." Ella pushes forward. "Let me see." She crawls on all fours to the hole and sticks her head in it. It's a metal air conditioning conduit. The metal walls are covered with dust. In the dim light, Ella sees that after a couple of feet, the shaft bends to the right. She reaches in with one arm, testing to see if her shoulders can squeeze in. She nods, satisfied. "It's going to work, guys." Her voice sounds tiny coming from the shaft. "I can fit through here. It looks great." "Awesome," Draeger says. He is staring at her butt, and under his breath he says, "That looks good to me too." Mark and Walthauser grin while Basti fidgets nervously. Ella appears again and sits down in front of the hole. "Something wrong?" "No," says Basti. "No, nothing," agrees Draeger. She glances down and starts to unbutton her short-sleeved blouse one button at a time. Draeger's eyes pop open and he puffs his cheeks. Mark leans his head on the shelf, and Walthauser unbuttons his pants and grabs the zipper. "What are you doing?" asks Basti. Ella looks up. She glares at Walthauser in disbelief and says, "I just don't want my blouse to get stuck." "Oh, I see." Walthauser buttons up his pants. "Not easy to read a woman," he remarks, chuckling. "You gotta be kidding," Ella says and rolls her eyes with disdain. Draeger shakes his head. "I wouldn't bet on it." Ella takes off her blouse and reveals a tight camisole with spaghetti straps underneath. "You could still get stuck with that on," Draeger grins wickedly. Although everyone is reaching out to hold the blouse, Ella ends up placing it next to the hole in the wall. "Good thing I wore my jeans today," she says. "Not really," says Draeger. "Yes," says Basti. "Wish me luck," she says as she turns back to the hole. "See you later." 9:56 a.m. "Do you need a push?" Ella stops and glares at Draeger over her shoulder. His face is right by the hole. "Keep your dirty hands to yourself." "I just thought, back off and leave my shirt alone too." Indignantly, Draeger says, "Hey, Mark, stop it. You heard what she said." Mark defends himself. "Me? I didn't do anything. Ella, I didn't touch." Yeah, she says. "Believe me? Yes, I believe you. Be quiet. I have to get around the corner somehow." She coughs as her arms steer up the dust. With both hands, she pushes her upper body around the bend, supporting herself with her feet on the metal. She's plunged into darkness. The dim light from the room is now blocked by her body. As the cold metal touches her skin, she becomes covered with goosebumps. She pushes herself forward with her legs. As her hips meet the bend, she rotates on her side so she can wind around the corner. More dust swirls and rolls like snowballs around her. "What do you see?" she hears Basti's hollow voice behind her. "A lot of dirt and dust," her voice echoes in the metal conduit. She stares straight ahead for a second, trying to see into the darkness. The blackness in front of her is overwhelming. Slowly she pushes on. She can't hear anything from above. Then the metal of the shaft groans under her weight, and an animal runs over her body. Ella lets out a scream that hurts her own ears. She wants to curl up, but can't because the shaft is too tight. She hears Basti's voice behind her. "It was only a mouse. Is everything all right?" "A mouse," she says softly. "Did you get it?" "No, it was too fast." "You should have seen it. It's gone. How are you? Can't see you anymore." "I can't see anything. It's completely dark." And without warning, the shaft tips forward. Ella slides uncontrollably. She twists and squeezes her eyes shut as she tries to reach out to something. Something sharp scratches her arm and her cheek. Her ring finger bends back, and then the slipping stops. Scared and hurting, she brings her knees up and stays still. Silence. 9:57 a.m. Ella lies with her arms bent and her face to one side on a network of poles, cables, and pipes. The ridges from a 10-centimeter cable trough dig uncomfortably into her back, one ridge beside each shoulder blade. Basti's voice sounds far away. "Ella? Ella?" "Yes." "What happened?" Light shines through many cracks in the walls. It looks like there are 3 floors above her and 3 floors below her. A bit of debris from the burst conduit comes crashing down in the emptiness beside her. A live wire swings back and forth, and sparks fly when it comes into contact with a metal fragment. "Ella, what's wrong?" Her breathing quickens. She swallows, trying to stay calm as she looks at the abyss below her. "Ella!" "Yes." "What is it?" "The shaft broke, and I landed on a bunch of cables. The bottom is 3 floors below me." "The shaft broke? How did it? It just burst. I was probably too heavy." "You hurt?" "No, just bruises and scratch. Nothing serious." "Make your way back." "Can't." "Why not?" She cautiously looks over her chest and sees that one of her legs is bent and the foot of the other is propped up against the wall of the conduit. "I can only touch the sides of the conduit with my feet." "Are you stuck?" "No." "Are you in danger?" "Yes. I'm afraid to move. I don't want to fall." "You have to move and try to get back." "I can't." "Try." Try. Mark and Drager join in. Slowly, she pulls her arm towards herself, like a sluggish reptile caught in a trap. She puts her elbows onto the nest of cables and tries to sit up, but she's unsuccessful. Her necklace catches on a loose wire as the cables sway. It rips off and lands not far from her left hand. Carefully, she tries to reach out, but her movement makes the loose nest of cables shudder, and her necklace slips away. She watches from the corner of her eye as it falls into the dim black darkness below. She clings to a handful of cables on each side of her and holds on to them tightly. Her only stable support is a cable trough, and it is too narrow to hold her safely when she tries to move. "No, I can't. I can't move here." 9:58 a.m. Neela leans forward as far as possible without touching the door to see what is happening. The guys are standing by the square hole in the wall. Basti rubs his eyes. "The fire department. We have to call the fire department." "They are probably out there waiting to detonate an explosive device," says Drager. "Firemen could rescue her," Basti says. "Until then, at least she's safe from the shooter," says Mark. "You're right," Drager agrees. Someone screams. It comes from underneath the cabinet with the sink. The doors beneath the sink fly open. All 4 boys stare at the cabinet, all of them pale as if they are looking at a ghost. Nina peeks out from underneath and looks around nervously. She rubs a bare patch of red skin on her head. With wide eyes, she looks from the boys to the hole in the wall and back again. I can help. She crawls out and sits up, revealing the dried red spots on her clothes and hands. The 4 boys stand frozen with their mouths open in surprise. They don't make a sound. What are they thinking? What do I say? My head hurts. The hair is hanging from the screw. Will my hair grow back? Do I have a bald spot for the rest of my life? I'm afraid to move. They're looking at me so strangely. Basti moves towards Nina and, with a face that's contorted as if he were in pain, he asks, "Is that blood?" "Yes," Nina answers. "I must look like a mess with my bloody head and my hair ripped out." Did he shoot you?" "Who?" He looks over at the other 3. "One of the slow ones, Basti," says Drager. "She's new and a grade below us," says Mark. Nina nods. Basti turns to her again. "There was a shooting at the school." I know. Her hands stay on the floor as if they're nailed down. "Okay," Basti says. "So why all the blood?" "Can't be that bad. Is it so bad?" "Are you or someone injured?" asks Mark from the back. "Or are you," Basti starts to say but doesn't finish. "I only pulled out a few hairs," Nina says. "I don't know what you're talking about. I caught my hair on a screw and tore it off free myself because Ella's in there. I pulled out a bunch of hair. That's why I'm bleeding. Is it bad? Is it so bad?" Her eyes fill up with tears. She grimaces and turns away as if to check her head in a mirror that isn't there. Drager laughs. "That doesn't make any sense. You look like you've been scalped with all that blood on your shirt." She looks down at herself. "That's not blood on my shirt. It's paint from art class. We were painting and the paint," they all repeat, relieved. They all take a breath and go over to her. "Nina, right?" asks Mark. "Yes, my name is Mark. I know." Basti points to the sink. "Have you been in there the whole time?" Her eyes try to find some place to look, somewhere other than at them. "When did you come in here?" asks Mark. "Before you." "So you were first?" "Yes." Basti crouches in front of her. "Why didn't you come out earlier?" "What should I say now?" Nina tries to find the answer on the walls of the room. "Were you afraid?" "Of me?" asks Mark. "It all happened so fast. I was terrified when the door flew open and you came in, and then Ella did, and Ella!" Suddenly they all look towards the shaft. "I can help," Nina says. School Shooter, written and narrated by Thorsten Nash. School Shooter is available as short novel on Kindle and as pocketbook on Amazon with my other novels and audiobooks. Link is in the description. The novel was translated by Heidi Gertz, edited by Andrea Kubala. The music you're listening to is by Max Wuerden with the track It from his album All Lost. And if you have listened up to here, I dare to imagine you like what you heard. Then please like it or subscribe or write a little review. It would be amazing. Tell others, share, or even consider purchasing this novel or another one of mine, of course. However, thanks for listening. And if you have questions or comments, just drop a line. Thanks. Cheers.